Welcome back to the Tangent. Back here again with the same group of guys. You know us. First thing I want to say is like, comment, subscribe. We're on Facebook, YouTube. I mean, definitely plug us and share us. If you like us and you know somebody else that would like us, share it to them, please. We'd like to get us out there.
We want as much criticism and eyes on us as we can. You know, obviously that's the name of the game.
So, we're back again with our second episode on cartoons. I think we want to jump right in and go with Gargoyles.
I think Gargoyles would be a good place to start, yeah.
We did kind of go off on our DC rant the last episode.
For sure.
Yeah, I was hoping that we would end up with a Gargoyles rant. Instead, we ended up talking about Batman. Which happens.
Yeah,
definitely.
So Gargoyles is one of those really weird cartoons that just had a very adult feel to it when you watched it, but it also had the very kiddie feel. Like it's still kids can still get into it and have fun watching it.
For me,
it was
being
kid friendly.
Yeah, for me being the youngest one to have watched it out of the three that have watched it. Like I was a kid, I was like 3 or 4. When it was on TV, when it was popular, and it was a huge deal for me.
Yeah.
I remember having 3 or 4 Goliath action figures. Goliath is the leader of the Gargoyles, for those who haven't seen it. I had 3 or 4 different Goliath action figures because I guess maybe the merchandise just wasn't that great. But I kept breaking them, and I kept getting new ones.
Well, I mean, you're a kid. Kids break stuff.
That is really weird, though. As popular as Gargoyles was, I don't remember a whole lot of merch coming out for Gargoyles.
I mean, there was a fair amount.
I don't think I saw
it was all weird.
Character diversity on their merch. That's definitely not.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't something that evolved with.
Yeah.
Well, also, Gargoyles didn't last very long as a show.
It was 3 seasons.
Yeah, I mean,
that's decent.
But still, I'll tell you what, those 3 seasons replayed a lot.
They did.
Oh, yeah, they were great.
I ended up watching those seasons multiple times.
The thing is, the 3 seasons didn't replay a lot. The first 2 seasons replayed a lot.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because it was the 3rd season
it was that 3rd season
mostly killed
which is the Goliath Chronicles. That's what that season was. It sort of killed the show. Yeah. They changed some of their writing staff because they didn't have enough writing staff. Which they discovered during season 2 when they ramped up their production schedule. They didn't have a big enough staff to cover everything.
Right.
So things got really weird. So, I mean, you can see some weird animation quirks because they would ship out episodes to random animation houses just to try and keep up with their demand and their schedule. And some of it didn't work out. Writing got a little weird. You can see a lot of episodes in season 2 especially that are there literally just to fill time,
right?
Because they just needed something that was quick to write and easy enough to animate, and they just needed time. And then season 3, they gave them a little bit more of a crew. They swapped some of their writers. Some people left because they wanted their production schedule even tighter, which they weren't happy with, and so things got kind of out of hand. It sort of snowballed from this neat project that a couple guys wanted to do that no one really thought was going to work into being a huge success and just being given too much too quick without enough people to handle it.
Well, the weird thing is the premise behind the whole show was just kind of an off-the-wall premise. I mean, the fact that the gargoyles on this one castle would come alive at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, we're gargoyles, we're going to protect New York.
Yeah, well, they went from just protecting their own castle and protect them from being seen or known of to, protecting the city. And didn't the castle end up floating in the sky at some point?
No, it was on top of a building.
Was it on top of a building?
It was on top of a building.
They used to be, they were relocated, weren't they too?
Yeah.
Didn't they used to be in Ireland or...
The main, it was in Scotland. It was in Scotland. So they were in, the castle was originally in Scotland. They all get cursed to be stone until the castle was above the clouds. Xanatos, who's the main bad guy, for a while, ends up hearing about this legend, wants to see if it's true, so he buys the castle and has the whole thing moved, brick by brick, to the top of one of his his executive buildings, which it's a skyscraper, so the top of it is above the clouds, and the gargoyles end up coming back to life.
Right.
And so they've been down and out on, you know, sitting on this castle for 1,000 years, and they wake up and there's cars and crap everywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
They're talking about modern technology and old.
Right. The last thing they knew was they had just been attacked by some barbarians the night before, you know, with maces and swords and.
Yeah, they lost a few gargoyles in that one.
They lost all their gargoyles. They were the only they had like 100 or something gargoyles. They all got destroyed during the day except for the 5, plus the dog. But you know, it's a whole big complicated sort of story. It's neat. There's cool villains.
Oh, yeah.
Macbeth, who the character of Macbeth is actually based off of the Shakespearean Macbeth, which is based off of an actual guy, and you know, so they had, you know, Macbeth and Demona, who's a bad gargoyle, who used to be like Gargoyle's wife, Goliath's wife, basically. Xanatos, who's evil businessman. The Pack. They're all different canine sort of styled names, like Coyote and Fox and yes, Wolf. Yeah, so yeah, they all have different names, and they play good guys on TV, but they're all like actual like bounty hunters in real life that got this cushy gig to make a bunch of money, and they wanted to go out on an actual hunt. So like the villains and stuff are kind of off the wall. It's a fun show, and it actually is weird because when people remember it, they remember it being dark because the whole theme of the show is kind of dark and dreary, and at night, because that's the only time they're awake is at night.
They're stoned during the day.
But you know, when you think about it, like, it is kiddish enough that you could show it to your kids. But when I went back and rewatched it, I forgot that there is some blood in it. There's not a lot of blood. There's some blood. Like the first episode, Goliath catches like a sword in his hand, and a little like trickle of blood comes out.
Yeah.
But you don't think about, you know, kids shows having any amount of blood at all.
I mean, there's some now. I mean, it's become a little more okay.
Yeah.
No.
Depending on the kids show.
Yeah. To run a little bit of this, that, and the other. And
yeah, it's kind of like a little bit of both, like where it's okay, but it's not okay.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a lot different.
There are some more extreme parents that are more against it than have ever been against it.
It's definitely a lot different than when I was younger. I mean, even in G.I. Joe, where they all had guns and rockets and missiles and stuff, and nobody ever died.
Well, it's like, it's kind of funny because, like, when I was a kid, when I was growing up, like, that was the thing I wasn't allowed to be, you know, introduced to or influenced by. Like, if I went to the store and I wanted a G.I. Joe toy, my mom would tell me no. Because of stuff like that. And, like, that's just...
No guns and things.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, my brother had that happen, and, like, I don't know why. There was just, like, specific things for... And I think that's kind of it's like a very specific opinionated point from parents nowadays that, like, certain ones don't give a crap about certain things, but they will about other things. Like, you know, for me, I wasn't allowed to play The Sims because, like, a character gets slapped in the face by a fish or something. It's ridiculous, right?
Well, and in The Sims, you can go woohoo somewhere and end up pregnant.
Parents apparently don't care about that anymore.
Right.
Well, I mean,
but, like, also, I was allowed to watch, like, the Ninja Turtles and stuff where they have, like, you know, shurikens and swords and all that stuff, but I couldn't watch, like, G.I. Joe.
It makes no sense because,
exactly.
Truthfully, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was always more violent than G.I. Joe. I mean, G.I. Joe had their giant epic gun battles, but nobody ever got hit with any of it.
It's a difference of view on
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles could get away with more violence because everyone they fought was a robot.
That is true. That is true.
So when they're stabbing people and throwing them off of buildings,
because the Foot Clan was
it's all just
robots.
simulated death, though. Either way, so it's like if you're gonna let your kid be exposed to Ninja Turtles,
but you know, Gargoyles does basically start off
implanting the idea
with you know, basically the murder, like a mass murder
Right.
Of a bunch of people.
Right.
I mean, they're all stoned at the time, so there's no blood or gore or anything. But it is pretty recognizable. These creatures are dead. They've been murdered.
Right.
Right. They can't come back. But so that's kind of our take on Gargoyles. If you guys have never seen it, it's on Disney.
But yeah, that's what I was just about to say. It's on Disney Plus.
So it's on Disney Plus. All 3 seasons are on Disney Plus. Am I right?
At least the first 2.
No, at least the first 2.
Truthfully, like Tim says, if you get past the 2nd season, it's kind of blah after that anyway.
The 3rd season has some good episodes in it. It has some good ideas in it.
Yeah.
It is not a bad.
It's
not a bad
executed
show. If you only watch the 3rd season, it wouldn't be a bad show. But the problem is, it just didn't hold up to the first 2 seasons and how good they were.
Right. So off to our next one. It's going to be a little more childish, I guess. Is how I would want to say it is.
Yeah.
But it has its really funny, epic moments in it. Is Darkwing Duck.
Heck yeah.
Darkwing Duck was one of those ones. It's kind of a Batman spinoff with
Looney Tunes and
Disney.
It's weird because it's
definitely Disney.
Isn't it technically a DuckTales spinoff too?
Yes.
Right.
It's actually it's actually
they're,
within the realm of DuckTales.
Right.
Their pilot is the same sidekick guy.
Yeah, it's oh God, what is his name? I forget his name, but either way, yeah, but it's the pilot guy who always flies the helicopters in DuckTales. Is the actual one of the pilots / sidekicks for Darkwing Duck.
Yeah.
But I mean, they also brought over Gizmo Duck from DuckTales.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he shows up every once in a while.
In Darkwing Duck, but my favorite is his entrances. Because they're never the same, because he can never figure out how he wants to enter a scene.
Yeah, he always makes these weird abstract comparisons.
It's like,
it was a really fun. I don't know how I'm trying to say this here. Like, his personality made it super watchable.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's freaking bonkers.
And then some of the vehicles that he had for himself, because it was kind of a Batman spin-off. So he had his own little duck jet and a car and a boat, and they all had basically the Darkwing Duck theme to it, just kind of like Batman did.
Yeah.
Batman had the Bat theme and everything.
Oh, there was a weird duck thing going on in cartoons for a while there.
Wasn't there?
There was DuckTales, and there was Darkwing Duck, and there was the Mighty Ducks.
I was just about to say something about the Mighty Ducks freaking TV show.
Where they were actual ducks from outer space that played hockey.
That was a crazy show. What a concept! I remember that.
Think about this one. The biker mice from Mars.
I love the biker mice from Mars. That show was so ridiculous.
I would say I knew you remember because I think you actually had some of the action figures.
Oh, I did.
Came with it, but Biker Mice from Mars was kind of a weird show too.
Not at all familiar with that, but that's.
Oh my god!
So what it was about these biker mice that were from Mars.
Okay.
So there's your show.
Right. All right.
Yeah,
it's almost as simple a concept as Street Sharks.
Right.
So that was okay. So Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, Biker Mice from Mars. They weren't Saturday morning cartoons. They were after school cartoons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They always ran that couple hours of cartoons starting at 3 o'clock when most kids
the Disney afternoon and
the Disney afternoon stuff. And a lot of those were based within the Disney realm, but not always intertwined with each other.
Right.
Tailspin was one of my favorite.
Oh yeah, Tailspin was good.
Had Baloo was the pilot.
That's a weird crossover too.
That is a really weird
because
crossover.
you take a character from the Jungle Book and make him a pilot.
Right.
Yeah.
And they had other characters from Jungle Book.
Crash a plane into Shere Khan, man. This is your pilot.
Well, and that's just it. Shere Khan was in it.
Yeah.
As one of the bad guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Baloo was not the only Jungle Book character. You had Shere Khan and some other characters.
There's a couple
really
of
had
characters
to suspend your disbelief for some of those things, but it was.
But they were so great because they were entertaining. I mean, it was one of those things that's like Baloo used to. So the whole thing of Tailspin was he was a cargo pilot. And the big thing is that they had these pirates flying these awesome freaking planes. The pirate planes were amazingly cool, well-drawn stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So his whole thing was he had to get his cargo from place to place, and they had to fight off pirates from stealing their cargo.
Yeah.
And the whole sky surfing,
yeah,
like his little sidekick guy would
had that
open
weird,
up the
that
cargo.
weird disc that he would fly
that's
on.
right.
He had this weird disc thing, and they'd open the cargo bay out of the back, and almost like water skiing.
Yeah, because he had like the little handhold thing that he would hang on to by the back of the plane.
And he would do some weird stuff. Man, that was such an out there show, but it was so good for what it was.
Right.
I mean, the Tailspin plane is actually pretty iconic. Like, there's actually RC guys, RC plane guys that have made replicas of that plane that actually can land in water and take off.
Yeah, because it was a prop seaplane.
Yeah.
So it was an actual prop plane.
I'm pretty sure it was called the Sea Duck or something like that. Had twin booms coming out the back with a giant cargo hold in the middle, and like I said, there's a RC plane enthusiast group out there called Flight Test. They're very popular in the RC plane industry. They do a lot of easy builds out of foam. Foam board, like dollar store foam board. If you have any interest in anything RC, check them out. They're really cool. But they actually took foam board and made a Sea Duck with twin engine, twin boomed, painted it yellow and red just like the Sea Duck from the TV show, and made it waterproof because the foam board, it's foam, so it's waterproof.
Right.
So it's waterproof. It's able to land and take off out of the water.
Right.
And because it has that flat bottom, even if you're taking off and landing in grass, it'll land smooth. And it won't mess up the props when you land and stuff like that in grass.
Right.
But it was really cool because it actually was a seaplane. It was pretty cool. But that plane itself is pretty iconic. Kind of got off of Darkwing Duck a little bit, but it's whatever. That whole afternoon, the Disney afternoon was pretty epic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a pretty epic time in my life because I loved coming home. I'd rush home from school to watch a couple hours of cartoons.
So now we move into the 9 p.m. and later shows?
We can go into the more adult style cartoons.
So we move
animated
from innocent laughter to...
Well, I mean, I'd like to stem off into some stuff that's adult influenced.
Well, I was gonna segue with a good segue of going into adults, which is The Simpsons.
Okay.
Because The Simpsons was like one of those you can still watch it as a child.
Oh yeah, I watched it every day. As
one of those things that, like, it has a lot of childish stuff in it.
At 6,
but if you really watch it as if you really watch it as you get older, like it was every Sunday evening. It was after football was over in my house.
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was only on the one day a week.
Yeah, it was on Sundays after football. So in our household, football was pretty much on all day Sunday.
Right.
But after football was over on Fox, it would just show up, and they had a lineup of decent adult-style comedies with The Simpsons in there.
Yeah.
And The Simpsons was one of those things, like I said, we could watch it as younger kids and not get completely corrupted into...
Yeah, because you're able to watch it with still your innocent eyes on.
Right.
You know, like, you're not catching the adult...
The adult tones. Innuendos and tones and stuff like that. But as we got older, and we continued to watch The Simpsons... we caught some of those older jokes that we would never have found funny growing up. For me, that was my first introduction into the more adult style of cartoon. I know you had something else, Tim, that you wanted to talk about into a segue into a more adult style cartoon.
Right, the more adult sort of influence, not like actual
adult show.
Yeah. So cartoons that were made by people who, as adults, liked certain things. Like Gravity Falls is a really good example of the creator was really, really into H.P. Lovecraft, which is not a child's medium. Like, looking into, like, the Cthulhu mythos or other H.P. Lovecraft stuff, those aren't child stories. Those aren't kids' stories. They're horror stories.
Yeah.
But he really, really loved those stories, so he decided he wanted to make a sort of kid-friendly version of H.P. Lovecraft. And he succeeded really, really well. He kidified it. He made it funny. He made it fun. He put this giant mystery element, underneath it. And at the end of every episode, he would put a cipher that you could decipher to try and learn clues about things that, were in the background of the episode or hints of the next episode.
He made it into a kid's medium.
Yeah, he made it into a kid's version of H.P. Lovecraft.
I never watched Gravity Falls. I don't think I've ever even heard of it until Tim said something about it recently.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of it. I've seen some episodes. My sister was super big into it, and I found myself enjoying it, but it was never like a show that I took the time to devote myself to. It was
a really good show, and the creator it's one of those shows that you might assume because it was only on for 2 seasons that it got canceled for some reason. No, the creator legitimately he was just like, no, I made this show to be 2 seasons long. Right. I hit 2 seasons. I finished my story. I'm done.
Well, and then like the niche that it was in, it's a Cartoon Network show, and that's kind of like the bane of Cartoon Network shows at that time. You kind of have shows that come in, they're great while they last, but they're not meant to last long. They're
right.
You got your couple seasons like there's plenty of shows that are there's an example that I found enjoyable, that you probably did too, considering Gravity Falls, like Steven Universe.
Steven Universe is one of those shows that I actually don't like.
No kidding. Okay,
and we can get into that after the show.
What about like
it involves me yelling a lot.
What about like the Adventures of Flapjack?
Flapjack was okay.
Flapjack was okay. They all kind of like, to me, they have the same like feel to them all.
Yeah.
Whether or not I enjoy them all on the
same
level,
they're also sort of pseudo adult. Like Adventure Time is sort of pseudo adult.
So I mean, they started Comedy Central started doing the Adult Swim?
No, it was Cartoon Network.
Was it Cartoon Network? Yeah. I couldn't remember. The thing is like...
I mean, those shows still play on Comedy Central.
Right. So. The thing is about Adult Swim was it was literally geared towards the adults that loved the cartoons growing up and just wanted something more in their wheelhouse as they got older. And it was great for that.
I remember being in middle school watching Adult Swim.
Which is fine.
I got into some shows that I still love to this day from Adult Swim, like Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't just throw adult comedy cartoons or claymation crap. They threw in like anime.
Yeah, there was a lot of anime.
You could sit there. You could watch like a half an hour Robot Chicken. Then they'll throw on like Family Guy or American Dad or something like that, or like. And then
it would be followed by like Outlaw Star or Rurouni Kenshin.
And
then they'd go right back to other things that were like adult comedy stuff, like Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Like
Metalingus.
Going into Robot Chicken, which I never really watched a lot of.
I did not enjoy Robot Chicken.
There was some little skits in Robot Chicken that are still iconic to this day.
Yeah. They did some very funny Star Wars stuff.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Like, Palpatine and Vader ones.
Or Bring Your Daughter to Work Day.
Was that the
Stormtrooper? Bring your
oh my gosh,
well,
that
like,
was
those
hilarious.
kind of things are, those, like, adult-style cartoon or like, whatever the mixture of this was. They always had their finger on the pulse of, like, what was going on at that time.
Moving into cartoons that had their finger on the pulse, and they still do to this day, and I'm going to use it as an adult cartoon, is freaking South Park.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, South Park has their fingers so far on the pulse that the Hong Kong protesters are using their episodes as part of their protest.
Yeah, like you have people that are like now You guys said South Park, but another huge example is The Simpsons. Like for me, I'm a self-proclaimed meme lord.
Yeah.
So when things happen in real life, there are people that are like, okay, let's see if these freaking shows have predicted this or talked about this. Is there going to be an episode about this kind of thing? And like,
oh yeah,
there almost always is.
Always.
If there isn't one already, because The Simpsons seem to be predicting everything.
South Park.
South Park has a huge advantage in the fact that the way their animation works, it only takes them a week to make an episode.
Yeah, exactly.
And they only do them in a week.
Right.
So the thing is, they've only missed their deadline like once or twice.
Yeah, they can have the content.
It was because of things like power outages and things that they would miss their deadlines. So they turn around full episodes in a week.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's always relevant and current.
Right. Always relevant and current. Right with what something's going on. Some stupid happens politically.
Yeah.
That they can put out like, that's pretty funny. Let's use that in, or that's really stupid. Let's make fun of it in our episode.
Exactly.
So it does bite them sometimes because a number of seasons ago now, when they were making fun of the 2016 election, and they were predicting that they legitimately predicted that Hillary Clinton would win. Mm-hmm. So they were writing their season as though she was going to win. Now when she lost, their production schedule is so fast they were able to try and do something else, but they had to rewrite the entire rest of their season because now everything they had figured from before was defunct.
Well,
the thing is I still would have enjoyed the hell out of that.
Oh, it was
even if they had kept it, kept it with her winning. I think that would have been a great just twist in humor. I can't even think of the word. Like the funny side of it would be that keep her winning and just let it run.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that'd be hilarious. Just
don't necessarily always have your finger on the pulse and kind of just do your own thing.
Well, I think the entire thing they were going for was from right before the election. Right, the episode they had before the election itself actually happened. They had this little meeting with Mr. Garrison, who was their Trump.
Mr. Garrison.
Yeah, Mr. Garrison, who was playing their Trump, basically. Like he had fake tan and weird hair, and so he was basically Trump. And then they had him meet with Hillary, and Hillary was basically just like, be a terrible candidate, so I will become the president, and I can rule this place with an iron fist. And she was going to be an evil president, and that's what they were going to make fun of. Was she was going to win, and she planned the whole thing with her opponent so that she could win because that was the only way she could win, and she could continue her evil plan, and then she lost, and so they just sort of dropped it.
But that still would have been very hilarious. It would have been
very
win or lose, in real life, it would have been hilarious to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch a lot of South Park. I just know that they are very good at being current.
Yeah.
Knowing what's out there right now and making it. I mean, I have seen my fair share of South Park episodes. One of my favorites is the World of Warcraft episode.
Oh, and that was made around the time that it was insanely relevant
very
to have
relevant.
the episode.
South Park is one of those weird shows. They have completely reinvented themselves.
Over and over again.
Over and over again. So they went from this simple show to being this weird sort of, excessive show to being a mildly topical show to being a on the ball show with continuity, because they didn't really have continuity before, and that's what they made fun of, killing Kenny over and over again.
How many times has Kenny died? How many episodes have they made?
Right.
Because he dies in every episode.
They broke their own fourth wall and made it not even matter that they were doing it.
Well, they did the whole episode where they killed Kenny and he stayed dead, and then they continued that, and that was the first major piece of continuity they had.
Right.
And then he just sort of comes back one day, and they end up making these big stories about why he keeps coming back and how he keeps coming back, and then they move into other forms of continuity. Like right now, the Marshes, Randy and Stan and their whole family, they live on a cannabis farm,
Right.
and they have for the last season and a half.
Yeah, because
Randy was sick and tired of trying to make a living, doing normal, geology stuff or whatever.
Perfect for his character.
And was just like, I'm gonna go grow weed, and so That's what he does, and it's just him doing money-making schemes, trying to sell more weed. And he jumps on the fake meat bandwagon and starts making meat. He starts making veggie burgers with weed.
Yeah,
the
Impossible Whopper made out of weed. Yeah. Hell yeah!
I love that episode because he's just wandering around one day and he's just like, no one's buying my weed anymore. What's happening? He just wanders into town and he's like, Burger King. Why is there such a big line at Burger King? And he sees the sign that says Impossible Whopper. He's like, what's an Impossible Whopper? And he ends up going in and he's like, what is this Impossible Whopper thing? He's like, it's a Whopper made entirely of plant matter. And he's like, so it's fake burger. And he's like, it's very popular. And he's like, now give me one. And he starts eating it and he's like, wow. This is the worst thing I've ever tasted. People actually pay you for this?
Hilarious.
And so he comes up with this idea, just like eating this, what he terms to be like the worst thing he's ever tasted. And he's like, I could outdo this. So he makes a burger out of weed. And he's like, oh my god, this is awful. And he keeps eating it. And eventually just starts becoming better, and we wonder why. And
Randy is one of the best characters on the show.
So he starts giving it to his friends, and his friends are just like, "What are you making me eat? This is terrible." And he's like, "Take another bite." Oh,
this is good.
That's
perfect. It's perfect because
then he opens up his own restaurant across the street from the Burger King and puts Burger King out of business.
Yeah,
it's great.
So
I love the episode where Randy's trying to get medicinal marijuana, so he gives himself testicular cancer.
Right,
so all the dudes do it too, and they're like all the dads are walking through town with their nutsack and a wheelbarrow,
and they're bouncing around on their balls. And
it's freaking hilarious, man.
So I mean, we all love. I mean, there's a huge cult following for South Park. And like I said, it was never in my wheelhouse of things to watch. But it's I know what it is, and I know that it's popular. It's just not my thing. Another one though that I really enjoy, but I can only enjoy it in small spurts, is Family Guy. Because truthfully, I'm going to tell you right now, what's his name? Seth MacFarlane. As a person, is probably one of the funniest people ever. Like, if you ever watch him do an interview with anybody, and some of my favorite interviews are the ones where he's on Graham Norton. For those of you guys who don't know, Graham Norton's a British TV show that he just brings guests on. And
it's a British talk show.
It's a British talk show. Like, really no different than, like, Ellen or anything like that, but it's mainly a nighttime show. But, and they all sit around and drink. That's the part that I love. Is like every single one of them has some kind of alcoholic beverage in front of them. So they ask what alcoholic beverage you want. They put it in front of them. But some of his stuff, Seth MacFarlane's stuff on that show is absolutely hilarious. Especially the episode where it's Seth MacFarlane, Tom Cruise, Katie Holmes.
Yeah.
And then there's like one other person on there. And they're talking about impressions and the voices that Seth can do. And they go and talk to Katie Holmes, and she's like, and Graham was like, well, we heard you do a pretty good Tom Cruise, so go ahead and do Tom Cruise's impersonation of Tom Cruise. And she does it. It's pretty good. It's funny to listen to a girl talk I feel the need for speed. It's pretty funny. And then come to find out that Tom Cruise does Donald Duck, and all it is Donald Duck sneezing. But Tom and Seth is like amazed by this. It's like, oh, that was actually really, really good. And then Seth just out of nowhere, he'll start talking, and then next thing you know, he's doing one of the voices.
Exactly. Yeah. He can do it like almost
flawlessly,
flawlessly. Yeah.
Family Guy really started going downhill when Seth stopped writing for the show.
Yeah,
he stopped writing for the show for a while. I think they tried to get him to come back. I think he might have for like a season.
Yeah, well, he started doing a lot of other stuff.
He's doing so much these days that he doesn't have time to write for the show. So the show just isn't what it used to be.
Well, he had that Orville show for a while. I think that got canceled.
Might have been.
He did that movie, which was actually rather hilarious.
Which one?
The Wild West movie, like
100 Ways to Die in the West, 1,000 Ways to Die in the West.
In the West.
He's also got Ted.
Yeah, he did Ted and Ted 2. The Ted movies were pretty funny.
The first one was really funny.
I think the interaction with Ted the bear and
well, yeah, you got Marky Mark in there too, so that's a recipe for
Mark
success.
Wahlberg. Well, Mark Wahlberg is funny in his own right.
Exactly, he's hilarious.
But he's a great action guy
too. Have you ever seen The Happening? He's hilarious in that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen The Happening, so I don't...
It's really bad, but he's funny in it.
Is he?
Well, what was that other movie with him and The Rock?
Pain and Gain?
Pain and Gain. That movie was not good, but he was funny.
Absolutely horrible, but yeah, that was a funny movie. Because you got to think, you got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who is very flamboyant as a character, regardless.
The Rock is hilarious.
Yes.
And then you put Marky Mark in there, and they're both freaking steroided up freaking weightlifters.
Yeah,
it's absolutely hilarious. Like, take the whole premise of the movie out of it and just watch it for the
Rock's comedic timing is so good. Like, you ever seen like Central Intelligence?
Yeah,
I haven't seen it, but I heard it.
Central Intelligence was amazing. The new Jumanji movie.
The new Jumanji movie is
actually a lot better than I expected.
Yeah, he is so.
But I haven't seen the second one.
Especially since he's supposed to be playing like this nerdy dude stuck in this giant guy body.
Yeah,
and he's trying to give inspirational speeches, and he like turns away from everybody. He's like, "Don't cry, don't cry."
I haven't seen the second one.
You got Jack Black. Man, that is a man right there. And he's just like, "Don't cry, don't cry."
I haven't seen the second.
Me neither.
But the first one, I was like, "Oh my god, they are going to ruin Jumanji! What the heck are they doing?" Yeah. I watched it and I was laughing the entire the whole movie.
That cast all together.
Oh yeah, Jack Black and then
Kevin Hart, Karen Gillan,
and The Rock.
That cast together is magic.
Didn't it have one of the? Who was
I could do without Kevin Hart. I
love Kevin Hart.
I get tired of seeing Kevin Hart.
And I'm kind of glad that they're kind of steering away from Kevin Hart in his popularity, which is okay. But in that movie, that dynamic of those four, Jack Black is hilarious. He does such a great job in that movie.
Have you seen Central Intelligence?
I have not.
Okay. So the premise of Central Intelligence is one of my favorite premises of a movie ever. Okay. The Rock, when they were in high school, because they went to high school together, him and Kevin Hart, right? Kevin Hart was the super popular jock, and The Rock was the fat kid that everyone made fun of.
Right.
And, during the last assembly of school, The Rock is taking a shower, and he's singing in the shower, and these bullies end up grabbing him and throwing him out into the middle of the assembly naked. And Kevin Hart's giving his big speech, because everyone loves him, including the principal. He's like, "Man, if I had a kid, I would hope to be you." So he's giving this big speech, and he sees The Rock get thrown out here naked, and he's like, he feels bad for him. He tells everyone to stop laughing at him. He gives him his Letterman jacket to cover up with, And ever since that day, The Rock has just like praised this guy.
His life.
He praised this guy. He looked up to him all the time. He kind of stalked him, and he put him down for all of his references and his emergency contacts and all this stuff. And then he ends up becoming this giant, hulking man
Central Intelligence
that works for the CIA, and he's a secret agent. Meanwhile, Kevin Hart becomes an accountant,
right?
And they end up running into each other, and The Rock's on this big secret, international mission, and he's asking Kevin Hart for help with the finances because he's trying to track down this, this money line, and they go on this ridiculous adventure.
All right, that was our tangent.
That was a tangent.
Totally a lovely tangent. If
totally
you haven't seen Central Intelligence.
Totally off cartoons and right into movies. But so we talked about Family Guy, South Park. Some of the more adults. I mean, there's also American Dad.
American Dad, in my opinion, is actually a lot funnier than Family Guy is.
I think I caught more of American Dad.
Yeah,
the first couple of seasons of American Dad were okay.
Yeah.
But when Seth left Family Guy initially, left the writing, he left to go and write for American Dad. That was the first big thing that he wanted to do, was try and make American Dad funnier. And it became funnier, and it stayed the funnier show for a long time.
Right.
But there are other weird shows that were, especially on like Adult Swim, that were adult oriented. King of the Hill, The Oblongs.
King of the Hill was pretty good. I watched
Metalocalypse.
Metalocalypse. Yeah.
Metalocalypse.
I can't say it. Don't even
say Apocalypse.
I can say Apocalypse, but I can't say Metalocalypse.
Say Metal.
Oh, I just said it. All right. Rock and roll. First time for everything. I just lost my Metalocalypse virginity.
Yeah, but like Metalocalypse was a great show.
It was.
It was so ridiculous and over the top.
Exactly. And I kind of liked. I already mentioned it, but Aqua Teen Hunger Force was kind of over the top and funny. I could watch it just because of the meatball. So
right.
It was great.
So, what was the name of that show with the one-eyed chick?
Futurama?
Futurama was okay. I mean, I didn't watch a lot of Futurama. I watched a little bit.
Yeah.
You got Futurama, then there's like, what is it, Rick and Morty, and...
Yeah, Rick and Morty's kind of like the new...
It's the new big
but,
thing.
The new
my favorite one of those late night shows for, late night cartoons for a long time was The Venture Brothers. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Venture Brothers.
I have not.
The first few episodes of The Venture Brothers is basically a spoof of Johnny Quest.
Nice.
Okay.
That's what it's supposed to be. Dr. Venture is supposed to be Dr. Quest, and he is just this drug addict has-been, who's trying to make himself relevant again in the scientific community. The bodyguard is this ripped, steroid-driven, psychopathic murderer with a knife. The two kids are instead brothers in Venture Brothers, which is why it's called Venture Brothers, and they are the most useless, kids ever. They always want to go on adventures, but they always come like inches from death because they're idiots. So it's just that over and over again, and the first episode especially, when they're going to the scientific conference, and they just throw in all this ridiculous crap, like there's a random alligator that's on their plane, so when they land at the conference, it just jumps out at them, and their bodyguard has to wrestle it to death with a knife, and he walks into the conference covered in blood, and everyone's like, "Where'd the alligator come from?" He's like, we were down in South America last week. Must have stowed on."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, so we've kind of covered quite a bit of cartoons here, like from kid cartoons, stuff we watched when we grew up, some of the stuff we watch now as we got older.
Right.
Is there anything else that we can think of, like animation-wise, that...
Teen Titans?
Yeah, we didn't really talk
kind of touched on it,
about
but
Teen Titans.
Teen Titans, see, I like the original Teen Titans when they first came out. I don't like the new...
Teen Titans Go.
Titans Go.
That's basically how everyone feels that is, above, like, 15 years old.
Yeah, but everybody also likes to just shit on things before they give it a chance.
I legitimately tried to watch Teen Titans Go, because it has the same voice cast.
Yeah.
I love that voice cast, so I tried to watch the show. I can't do it. I accept that it is very much a kid's show.
Yeah.
And I'm not a kid, but it's not something I could do.
I think
they have been doing
surprises you.
More rumors of wanting to do more seasons of both Young Justice and Teen Titans.
Right.
Okay.
So
That'd be awesome.
Well, then you also got a
but
lot
the thing
of
is, there's rumors for everything. There's rumors that they might try and do another season of Gargoyles now that's on Disney Plus.
Right.
And if they do, then they'll probably just act like season 3 didn't happen, and make a new season 3 basically.
We can go into the Star Wars side of animation too, because I mean, Star Wars animation has become,
because they're trying to do another season of the Clone Wars.
They're not trying. It's coming out on February 12th.
Right.
So I'm excited. The Clone Wars, and then what is that? Rebels, and
Rebels.
And then there's all kinds
of
spin-offs and stuff from that.
Star Wars Resistance was supposed to be their new show, but no one likes it.
Yeah, it's not doing well.
I mean,
because they took everyone's advice from when they put out Rebels, and everyone said that it needs to be more like Clone Wars more adult-ish, like Clone Wars was, instead of being more kiddish. They took all that advice and they threw it out the window, and they made the most kid-friendly show that they could.
Yeah,
no one likes it, and they're surprised.
I feel like there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, pun intended though, there's a lot of resistance against the new generation of Star Wars from fans.
Disney has
People
Disney is a really weird entity because they are very good at pleasing crowds, except when it comes to Star Wars.
Yeah.
They refuse to do anything that works with Star Wars because they have their own ideas. They treat Star Wars like it's any other Disney property, but
Right.
it's not.
It's not exactly.
Which is not a mistake they make with Marvel.
Yeah.
They let Marvel stay Marvel. They don't treat it like a Disney property.
Yeah, they took over Lucasfilms and kind of
They tried to make it Disney Star Wars instead of just letting it stay Star Wars.
Instead of leaving it Lucas.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have anything
I like
against
some
the
of
new
the
story.
ideas they've gone with, but I'm not a big fan of the execution of it. That's all I'm really
I have a
saying.
lot of things against the new story, but whatever. It's done now.
It's a new story.
Right.
It's so.
That being said, before we go off on another tangent, I think it's about time to wrap this episode up.
Yeah, I think we kind of ran out of material here, didn't we?
Well, we kind of came to the finish line, anyways, time wise.
Right. So, I really don't have any recommendations for newer cartoons because I'm kind of stuck in the past when it comes to good animated cartoons.
I would recommend. It's not super newer, but I just recently watched Avatar: The Last Airbender.
That's a great show.
It is a great show.
I can't believe we didn't talk about that.
It has a lot of like kid element to it.
I can't believe we didn't talk
really
about that.
weird
super
is,
enjoyable.
What's really weird about that is I've always considered that anime, and then I come to find out it's not really anime.
No,
it's not really, but it's very anime seeming.
It's anime inspired.
Yeah,
it's very anime inspired, but yeah,
Yes.
it is entirely U.S. made, except for the fact that some of the animation was done in Korea. But
Right.
it's
We don't.
But
we
it
won't
is
go there.
super enjoyable. We didn't talk about it, but that would be my recommendation for like a newer, because like I mean it's new enough to where I wasn't a kid when it was coming out.
right.
Yeah.
So my recommendation would be everyone should watch Gravity Falls, because everyone who watches it loves it, but not enough people have watched it.
Right.
So everyone should watch Gravity Falls, and I'm going to steal James's recommendation, and I'm going to tell James specifically to watch Venture Brothers because I think he'll like it.
Okay.
Harrison?
Anything? Mr. Harrison?
Mr. Harrison?
I think I'd probably recommend, we didn't talk about it at all, but for younger kids, maybe like the Fairly Odd Parents, the more beginning part of it, they're pretty good. It's a pretty good cartoon, honestly.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a whole lot of inspiration from Nickelodeon or any of the Nicktoons kind of.
Okay, so we didn't really get into the Nickelodeon.
Rocko's
cartoon.
Modern Life and Ren and Stimpy were the big ones. And
My
Doug was
big
a
one
big
was
one for me.
my big
Oh,
one.
man, Doug,
actually, truthfully,
But that eventually got bought by Disney.
Hey Arnold.
Arnold, yeah.
My big one was Phineas and Ferb.
But
that's something.
Disney.
That's not.
Disney.
I know, but like that style within that era.
That's a good one. It is really a good
Um,
one. Of a
But the thing is I didn't even start watching Phineas and Ferb until my son was born. That was,
Yeah.
10 years ago? I think my son was like 2 or 3. We started watching Phineas and Ferb just because. And it was actually really
engaging even as an adult.
Right,
Like I remember
right.
Dude, yeah.
I remember when I was like 16, 17 is when Phineas and Ferb, what is this? I watched it. Didn't have any like,
It made me want to watch all of it. So
Yeah,
I
I was
watched
like,
them
okay.
in order because I
know,
think it was on Netflix or something.
honestly,
so we were
just,
able to watch
just
them.
from the intros. It's like there's 104 days summer vacation.
Yeah.
Like it gets you into
Oh
it.
yeah, absolutely.
You're like, yeah, I'm rocking out to the intro. Like now, it's got a good character cast, voice acting wise, and just writing wise.
The movie
But
was really
really,
good too.
if we're going to
Yeah.
talk about Nickelodeon, though, my thing about Nickelodeon was some of the older stuff. It wasn't the animation. It
Yeah.
wasn't the cartoons. It was like some of the awesome shows like Double Dare,
Right.
Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have.
Oh my God,
Legends of the Hidden Temple, Guts.
Like
Guts.
So that's why for me, I didn't have much of a Nickelodeon.
Right.
There was
Rugrats.
They had
Rugrats is a good show.
Nick Arcade.
Even,
Nick Arcade.
What was it? They did that future Rugrats show. Rugrats all
grown up. Yeah.
That was great
that
too.
show.
I mean, it didn't last very long, which is fine.
I didn't get a chance to watch All Grown Up. I didn't even know that it was an actual thing until like the show was almost canceled.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that it didn't last.
Well, I
long.
mean, then Tim mentioned Doug.
Hey Arnold was
and then Doug had that spinoff of what's her name did a show for like a season or two. The purple haired chick that was in Doug.
Yeah.
I always forget her name.
I don't know her name, but I know.
But she had her own show for a minute too.
But anyways, we said we were gonna wrap.
Yeah, we said we were wrapped up.
10
So
minutes ago.
we made our recommendations. We also threw in a few extras at the end there. But with that, I think we're just gonna say we'll talk at you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Later.